From Ryan Garcia demanding a fair rematch without any weight restrictions, to Tank finally getting the chance to settle his war of words with Josh Taylor, here's who Gervonta Davis should fight next. And King Ryan is right on top of the list because he definitely deserves a fair rematch with Tank. I mean, it totally makes sense because even though Garcia lost by KO, ending his 23-win streak, it was still one of the top fights in history, and so it's no surprise that the match brought in a whopping $40 million. Don't get me wrong though, it's not all about the money. Cuz King Rye believes that he was done dirty in their first bout. How so? Well, according to Ryan, Tank and his team took false advantage of him by insisting on catch weight and rehydration restrictions. Now that was a problem for Ryan, because he was naturally the bigger man between the two, and he had to agree to a 136-pound catch weight, which means that he had to bring his weight down to 136 for the weigh-in. Even that would have been fine by itself, because the boxer is free to gain as much weight as he wants after the weigh-in. But Tank also made him sign the rehydration clause the very next day, which prevented him from going a single pound over 146. And since the second weigh-in was only 10 hours before the fight, King Rye had to adhere to a strict weight requirement that he just wasn't ready for. He believes that the strength-draining rehydration clause left him unprepared for the fight, and he didn't feel so strong going into the ring. So obviously, he'd want another shot at Tank, but only if Davis agrees to meet him halfway and bulk up to 140 for a change. But who knows if Tank will even agree to that? Admit it or not, the man's arrogant when it comes to stuff like this. This is exactly why he'd prefer to go against someone closer to his weight. And who better than the super featherweight world champ Joe Cordina? I'll be honest with you, a fight between Joe and Gervonta didn't seem like a great idea at first, but his April performance against Rakhimov has changed my mind. Because think about it, Gervonta has an undefeated record of 29-0, and the Welshman is also unmatched in the ring with 16 wins and 0 losses to his name. So it'd be really interesting to see one of their records getting ended. Plus, the unbeaten 31-year-old just bounced back from an injury that forced him to surrender his well-deserved IBF title to Rakhimov, only to regain it by passing the test with flying colors. He showed insane speed and technique to put the belt on his waist a second time by a split decision win. So when it comes to skills, it'd be a brilliant matchup between these two. But the only problem could be the promotion, as he's never gained the same amount of fame as Tank. But with Eddie Hearn as his promoter and the premier boxing champions on Gervonta's corner, the crossover is bound to bring in the Benjamins. Lastly, his profile has never been higher in his 6-year career, which surely brings him closer to Tank's level. Also, his 5'9" build and 69-inch reach bypass Tank's dimensions, so he may prove to be a challenge for Davis. But hey, the Southpaw has never shown any interest in fighting Joe, so this might be a long shot. But you know what isn't? A match between the Dream and Tank, because both of them are dying to get their hands on each other. Now, out of all the possible fights, I think this is the most likely one to take place, because the debate for the lightweight king needs to be settled once and for all. On one hand, we have Gervonta, the KO prodigy with 27 knockouts, and on the other hand, we have Devin Haney, who might not have miraculous fists, but he's got a 30-0 undefeated record with 15 KOs too. Plus, the man is the undisputed lightweight champ with 4 belts at the same time, which is why he's the only guy that Tank has yet to prove himself against. And let me tell you, it's not going to be an easy fight for him, because where Tank can make his opponents see stars with just one punch, Haney is a slick boxer with excellent footwork, and the only way Tank can win is if he can land his devastating punch. Plus, the Dream is notorious for his ability to frustrate his opponents, especially with his speed and counterpunches. And even though there's a close to 0 chance that he can knock out Tank, he still has a good shot at impressing the judges with his defense and jabs. All in all, it's a fight that Haney has been wanting for years. And now that he's threatening to finally bulk up to super lightweight, Tank might just be forced to take him up on his offer before it's too late. And it even looks like he will. He's been really vocal about the possible super fight lately. And maybe it's because his former promoter, Money Mayweather himself, has suggested that it's a fight that needs to happen. And he thinks there are not just 2, but 3 lightweight kings in the boxing world right now. And he put Shakur Stevenson right up there with Tank and the Dream. Now, a year ago, if someone asked me about a fight between the Fearless and Tank, I'd probably have laughed at them. Shakur was never even close to the lightweight division. but recently he's been jumping classes like it's nothing. And after being a two-division champ in both featherweight and super featherweight, he finally entered lightweight with an impressive KO win over Yoshino. And now that he's in the same class as Tank and Haney, Shakur is a viable opponent for Davis. Despite his short tenure in the division, Floyd considers him to be one of the 3 kings of lightweight boxing. And honestly, he's not wrong. Shakur is climbing faster on the pound-for-pound list than any other boxer at 135. And luckily for us, he's ambitious too, because now he finally has the chance to prove that the rumors about him beating Tank during a sparring session was true. He still insists that he's superior to Davis, although Tank deserves credit for being a hell of a fighter. It just doesn't change the fact that Stevenson can easily best him in the ring. And he assumes that Tank knows it too. Knowing Tank, I think we all guessed it. He wasn't going to take lightly to the challenge and will aim to put Stevenson in his place, reminding him that he's still not fought at 135. That is Tank's weight, and he topped it off with a simple question. What's Shakur gonna do when he gets hit? Well, I, for one, am dying to find out. But speaking of old sparring partners, Shakur isn't the only guy that's jumped into the ring with Tank back in the day. Teofimo Lopez was his sparring mate way back when he was just 18, and Lopez's father thinks it's about time they had a real fight. Now, I get that this fight might not be a fan magnet like the rest of them, but it's a chance for the two to test themselves against each other after 10 years, and especially since fans saw their sparring session from their teens. They all agreed that Tank owned Lopez back then, but they've grown a lot over the past years, especially since both of them have held world lightweight titles. And they frequently clapped at one another when Teofimo was holding the title at 135. And even though fans thought they were going to see a fight then and there, Lopez bulked up to 140, leaving his partner alone in the lightweight division. But don't worry guys, all hope is not lost. Given Davis's history of belt collecting, if Teofimo wins the WBO title at 140, I think we can see the sparring partners reunite in the ring. But if he loses, then his opponent, the current WBO super lightweight champ, Josh Taylor, has an equal, if not a better chance of locking fists with Tank. Now, to be honest, Josh seems like the more likely option here. It's not just about skills and exposure anymore. With Josh and Tank, there's an unsettled war of words that can only be settled with their fists at this point. Back when Davis claimed the WBA's second-tier belt at 140, defeating Mario Barrios in 2021, Taylor was at least impressed with his win, claiming that the only way Tank could call himself a champion is after facing Josh himself. And he even went so far as to say that he was confident Tank wasn't going to accept the challenge. There's no way he would agree to be in the ring with a real threat. Well, hopefully, if Josh successfully defends his title against Lopez, he can finally give Davis the even fight he so desperately wants. So, from Tank finally getting the chance to settle his war of words with Josh Taylor, to Ryan Garcia demanding a fair rematch without any weight restrictions, this was who we think Gervonta Davis should fight next.